Hi, everybody. Welcome to the virtual edition of Tell Us About Your Travels. I know it's been a long time since we all gathered here for this program, but Joanne and I found a way to do this through Zoom. So we do ask that you be respectful of our presenters, Nancy and Michael Moon, and that if you see or hear anything disrespectful, we will kick you out of the program. Just wanted to let you know. So without further ado, we'll have Macy and Michael Moon talk about their travels to Australia and the Outback. Take it away.
Okay, thanks, Emily. Um, this presentation tonight is a trip that Nancy and I took to Australia in October 1 to October 23, 2019. On the first half of the trip, we were accompanied by two friends, Terry and Connie, a couple from Santa Monica, who are with us here tonight. The second half, well, and I might say that the four of us put that part of the trip together based on what we had read about Australia, things that we wanted to be sure and see. The second part of the trip was with two friends, a married couple who live in Cairns, Australia, that Nancy and I met on a trip, about 10 or 12 years ago to Quebec. And so they pretty much set out the plan for that second part of the trip. And we did overlap, the six of us then, for about 2 days. Okay. Just to kind of orient us, Australia, as I'm sure you're all aware, is in the Southern Hemisphere. And here we have Australia. It's a pretty large country. It's approximately 2.7 million square miles as compared to the United States, which is 3.8 million square miles. So it's a very large expanse. And a lot of that is what we might refer to as wide open spaces, very sparsely habitated. Most of the habitation of the entire country is on the around the outskirts on the shore. There are 6 states and 2 territories. I'll just run through them just again for orientation. Here is Queensland up here in the upper right, which we will visit. New South Wales with Sydney right here. Also contains the capital, Canberra, which is actually the Australian Capital Territory, one of the 2 territories. Down here at the lower right is Victoria, the island of Tasmania. South Australia, here, particularly notable for the Barossa Valley, which produces some of the greatest wines of the world. Up here, Northern Territory. This is a place that we spend a fair amount of time that we will be visiting. And then the largest state, Western Australia, again, very sparsely habitated, except for around Perth here at the lower left. Okay, again for orientation, nearest neighbors to Australia, over here off the eastern shore is New Zealand. To the north is the island of New Guinea, separated from Australia by the Torres Straits. And then to the west are the islands of Indonesia. So that's our orientation for where we are. Okay. Now, we arrived at Sydney, as do all flights from the United States. Here we see the Sydney skyline, bracketed by the Sydney Opera House on the left and Harbor Bridge on the right. So two icons of Sydney, bookmarking the Sydney skyline. The first colonization of Australia started right here at Sydney Cove on January 26, 1788. Sydney is the capital of New South Wales and its largest city. And it is a very bustling, modern city. The afternoon, we arrived in Sydney around 6 a.m. local time. That afternoon, we walked a short distance to the Royal Botanic Garden. These are lovely botanic gardens in Sydney, comprising 75 acres, right on the harbor. The gardens were established in 1816 at the site of the first farm in the colony. There are many fountains, monuments, statues. The Botanic Gardens are especially known for their amazing diversity, especially of tropical plants, and particularly one of the finest collections in the world of palms. Here we see kind of a serendipitous koala topiary. And we will see one of the actual koalas later. And remember, they're not bears, they're koalas. Here's Sydney Opera House. Now, what we refer to as Sydney Opera House is actually a large complex of theaters and concert halls. One of the best known is the Joan Sutherland Theater, named for the famous Australian opera star. Now, the Opera House was built, it took 14 years to build, from 1959 to 1973. And for all of the, the Michigan people, there is a very important Detroit connection for the Sydney Opera House. Eero Saarinen from Cranbrook House persuaded the construction committee to accept Jorn Utzon's design for the Opera House over his own design, because there is no other building like it in the entire world. Now, this presented construction problems and such, and as you might expect, since this took 14 years to build. But again, it is an iconic building of Sydney and of Australia. No other building like it in the world, and the most visited site by foreign visitors or tourists in Australia. The Opera House was built at Bennelong Point. Very important point, because this was the location of the house of an Aboriginal man, Bennelong, who befriended the first European colonists. There's also a Bennelong restaurant within the complex right over in this area. Here's one of the concert halls, a very large one with exceptional acoustics. Now, Sydney is a very walkable city with many neighborhoods, parks, beaches, points of interest. Now it's a very widespread city. So when you do these walks, you have to limit yourself to certain areas, um, because it is so widely spread out. One of those areas is the Macquarie Lighthouse. This was the first lighthouse in operation uh, in Australia in 1818, and named for the then Governor Macquarie. And I don't know if we'll see anything else, but it has been noted by a number of authors that a lot of things in Australia are named for Governor Macquarie, and this is one. The memorial that you see here, the bottom part of the structure here, that memorial was built recently on the 150th anniversary of establishing this lighthouse. I like to include any kinds of lighthouse pictures for our Michiganders, since Michigan is the state known for having the most lighthouses in the United States. And we take pride in our lighthouses. Another popular place of interest is Bondi Beach. Very popular beach with locals and with visitors. Bondi is an Aboriginal word, which means water breaking on the rocks. And we don't see the rocks here, but we do have rocks out here. Another walk that we took, one of the longer walks, rewarded us with many wonderful views of Watson's Bay. This one here, you can see, this is the opening. This is the opening to Sydney Harbor. So to your left is Sydney Harbor and the city of Sydney. To your right is the Pacific Ocean. Now, we can look across from our vantage point to the city of Manly. Manly is a very popular spot for the beaches, for surfing, for restaurants and nightlife, particularly among the younger crowd. Okay, we're going to leave Sydney now. I got everything on that. We're going to leave Sydney now and go to the Northern Territory, which you can see highlighted here. And the red box that you can see is what is referred to as the red center area. Now, again, this is a very arid region, arid and semi-arid region in general, although we will see some exceptions to that in some of the photos. It is an area that is steeped in Aboriginal culture, and with beautiful vistas of the landscape. There are numerous sacred Aboriginal sites in the area, some of which we are allowed to visit. Okay, now, this is in the Uluru-Kata National Park. Just some vista to give you an idea of the arid region, the types of plants, kind of scrub brush and small trees that we see here. We'll see more of these later. Okay. This, oh, okay. Um, just wanted to note that there's a crucial item of apparel in this area, and that is the Outback fly net, due to the presence of many biting flies. In the background, you can see still also some of the topography that I showed before, along with the Olgas, which we will come to in a minute. At this time, I would just like to mention I've talked before about the Aboriginal people. It has been determined that they first arrived in Australia around 65,000 to possibly even more than 100,000 years ago. Long before Europeans arrived in the 18th century, they had spread over the entire continent and Tasmania and a number of other islands that surround the continent. There are over 250 linguistic groups of the Aboriginal people. And it has been postulated that the population that first arrived in Australia may have only been a few hundred people. Okay. Again, this national park is Uluru Kata National Park. And Uluru is what everyone is, like this. Oh, I should mention, here's some of the plants that we can see there. Here is a witchetty tree, which provides a major portion of the Aboriginal diet in the area. The witchetty grubs, which live on the roots of this tree, and these grubs then are dug up and eaten. And the spinex. There are many different varieties of spinex, and it's a semi-arid and arid climate plant that you see all over. Okay. Again, Uluru Kata National Park. Uluru is the Aboriginal name, not translatable, actually, for what the European explorer William Gosse called Ayers Rock for the then Secretary of State of the state of South Australia. South Australia at that time had purview over that northern territory. Okay, yeah, the park is very large, 327,000 and more acres of desert outback. And it was established as a World Heritage Site in 1987. Important to us now is that because of it being sacred to the Aboriginal people, it was returned to them by the Australian federal government in 1985. And at that time, they started returning the Aboriginal names. Therefore, Ayers Rock became Uluru. The land was then leased back to the Australian government for management and is now jointly managed with the local Aboriginal tribe, the Anangu people. Now, I also mentioned the Kata Tjuta portion of the national park was previously referred to as, oh, I'm sorry, I'll wait, as the Olgas, named again by Gosse for the then Queen Olga of Württemberg, Mount Olga, the highest point, and then the remaining points all just as Olgas. Uh, this area is about 25 miles from Uluru. But I want to show a couple more views of Uluru because of the beauty of the rock. This is the world's largest single rock monolith, a single sandstone edifice on this arid plain. And as you see it during different parts of the day and see the light playing on it and the shadows, it is a photographer's dream. We saw it a few times during the day. Wait a minute here, yeah. And return to it at sunset. So we could see the play of the setting sun on the rock while we enjoyed some wine and snacks. Let's see here. I'd like to mention too that for a long period of time, this has been a focus for a lot of people who want to climb such rocks. But the day that we were there was the last day that it was allowable to climb Ayers Rock. And that was ended on that day because of the objections of the Aboriginal people who find it a sacred site. Okay, get back here to the Olgas. The Aboriginal name Katajuta means many heads. And these are conglomerate domes that occupy 11 square miles in the park. And again, the largest one, over 3,500 feet, is Mount Olga. Again, they, like Uluru, are obvious for their photographic interest because of the light playing on them and the shadows. Okay, between the Olgas, there are a number of gorges that serve as a refuge for numerous plants and animals. They have streams and water that is available for the wildlife. Walkways have been built to protect the plants and the habitat. And let's see here, this is the Walpa Gorge running between two of the Katajuta domes. This is us with our friends Terry and Connie, and you see we all appropriately have our fly nets on. It's possible to see a lot of the native plants and animals, such as wallabies and a number of bird species. Here's another view. And in some locations, you can see Aboriginal pictographs such as these. These are usually pretty difficult to photograph because of the lack of light, and they are on a slanted surface. But this is an example of the pictographs. These are present along with petroglyphs in many areas around Uluru and Katajuta. and also in other areas of Australia, with many similarities in their form. Okay, again, here's the gorge with many of the plants. You notice that there is obviously a difference in the flora from the more arid plains in these gorges. This is a carved Australian Woma python that we found at an Aboriginal culture center near Uluru. It's one of the common snakes of Australia, a particularly beautiful one. And as you might notice, the decorative patterns, which are very typical of the Woma python, are referred to as the waka pattern by the Anangu. Okay, after Uluru and Kata Tjuta, we flew north to Alice Springs. This is the largest city in the Red Center by far. Alice Springs was named for the water hole near the telegraph line that was built in 1870, and Alice was the wife of the construction manager. The town developed with the railway, and when the road came in from Adelaide in South Australia, and has jumped greatly in population in the last 20 years. Here is the reserve now where the first telegraph station from 1871, built near the stream. And I'd like to just to point out the ghost gum trees, these beautiful ghost gums, because of the availability of water. A couple of the places that we visited in Alice Springs are a testament to the rural atmosphere, the very small population of the area that is spread out over great distances. The Royal Flying Doctor Service was founded by Pastor John Flynn in 1928 because he found that so many of his parishioners were dying for lack of very simple medical care. As you might imagine, providing medical care over such a large area is quite problematic. So the Royal Flying Doctor Service provides both primary and emergency services. And this has served as a template for a number of other countries that are facing similar challenges. Also, in the same vein, education for children over those large areas is problematic. And so in 1951, Adelaide Mifke began the Alice Springs School of the Air, in which children could be homeschooled over the radio. Now, since 2003, the use of the two-way and one-way satellite technologies have made this a lot simpler. And you might consider this possibly the first vestiges of virtual learning that most of the children in our area, at least, have become familiar with this past year. Also, with respect to the Aboriginal peoples, they in particular live in remote areas in small groups. And the indigenous peoples of Australia are much more likely to suffer from kidney disease than other Australians. Now, this is partially attributed to a physiologic difference, and that is they appear to have fewer glomeruli per area of kidney, and glomeruli are the basic units of kidney function. And also because of switching from their indigenous diet to a European diet. That has brought along a number of health problems, including obesity and diabetes, similar to indigenous populations in the United States. So in 2000, artists from local communities created an art auction in New South Wales and raised $1 million to start the Western Desert Dialysis, which is Indigenous owned and run, and it's referred to as the Purple House. The base is in Alice Springs, and there are 15 remote clinics with a mobile dialysis unit. That's the Purple House. Okay. Yeah, we were privileged to visit this facility in Alice Springs due to an introduction from our Australian friend, Barbara Schmidt, who works as a liaison between the Australian federal government and the Indigenous people, especially for healthcare and education. And here's the purple truck that travels throughout the Outback to provide dialysis services. Okay, in Alice Springs, there are a number of art galleries that specialize in Indigenous art. At one of these, we met Fabrienne Peterson. She is a local icon in the Indigenous community for her art. When we visited the gallery, she happened to be working there at the time and working on this particular piece, which we purchased. Here it is, just to point out.
Oh, wow.
This piece, let's see, this is her depiction of, as she told us, the story involving women of her tribe going on a foraging expedition for the wangunu, or damper seeds. These are small black seeds that are collected by women in kulaman baskets, which we will show. These seeds are then ground into a black powder and made into a bread that is cooked on the coals of the fire. The technique here is called dot art and uses acrylic paints on various surfaces. This is on canvas, but they can also be on wood or linen. Now, I mentioned that they collect these in kulamans. These are bowls made from the bark of a tree. They cut the bark out and then peel it away. Once they get that piece of bark, they heat it so it's pliable and roll the sides up like this. As you can see on the right, the sides have been rolled up to make a basket. On the underside, these are decorated by burnt-in designs. Here is a floral design and a depiction of, again, the damper seeds. In this basket is a necklace made of the damper seeds. Okay, both east and west of Alice Springs, you find the McDonald Ranges. This is to the west. This is a range of a mountainous range with many gorges and creeks, named again for the governor of South Australia in the 1860s. And again, with many sites that are sacred to this area's tribal group, the Aranda. This is one of the gorges. There are numerous wildlife habitations there. And one of those, I think it may be the only non-bird species that we saw in the area during our trip, are the wallabies, which are of course related to kangaroos. Kangaroos and wallabies both being marsupials or non-placental mammals. Both marsupials and monotremes, or egg-laying mammals, are prevalent in Australia. Okay, and like these, I think this was a rock wallaby. There are a number of different species, but they're all fairly small and often quite difficult to see. Here is one of the few placental mammals that you find in Australia, the dingo, along with bats and a few species of rodents. Now, the dingo is a fairly recent addition to Australia. They believe being brought there probably only around 5,000 years ago. Again, here we have one of the gorges in the McDonald Ranges, but this one would be flooded during the rainy season, and so you find a number of these ghost gums, which would be found there only because of the ability to get water during that time. In Alice Springs, there is the Olive Pink Botanic Gardens, which we visited. Again, here are our friends Terry and Connie enjoying the arid atmosphere. Now, the presence of these flowering plants and trees in this area where you do find the springs attracts wild birds. Here are two of the most common varieties that we saw. On the left is the gala, which we saw everywhere we went in Australia. They're very noisy, gregarious birds that are hard to miss. This, I believe, is a male gala. They are almost identical, except males have black eyes and females have red eyes. On the right is the Australian ringneck parrot, the western form of that bird, because you can see he has yellow feathers on the belly. That's the western form. The eastern form is all green. A beautiful bird that are usually found in pairs, whereas the galas are found in large groups. Usually you see these parrots in pairs. foraging either on the ground or in trees or bushes. And of note, which I found to be true, these birds can be approached fairly closely when they are in trees. Okay. Another very interesting aspect of Alice Springs is the kangaroo sanctuary. Something that my wife Nancy found out about and insisted oh, I'm sorry, Connie found out about and insisted that we go for good reason. Okay. It's a fairly large wildlife sanctuary started by Chris Barnes in 2005. One of the wildlife problems that is experienced all over Australia is animals being killed on the roadways. And to help with this problem, particularly of kangaroos in the Alice Springs area, Barnes started the sanctuary to supply a home and care for injured adult kangaroos and orphaned baby kangaroos, or joeys. Here we see him with one of the joeys. I'm not sure if anyone has ever heard of him. Sometimes he's gained national popularity in Australia and even international popularity over the internet, and is often referred to as Kangaroo Dundee. Here's one of the kangaroos, a red kangaroo at the sanctuary. And this, although we did see kangaroos a lot of places in Australia, this was the only opportunity to really see kangaroos up close. And I mean very close. Because some of them would be quite friendly and come rub right up against you. Like this guy. And when you visit the sanctuary, as we found, you even have the opportunity for a short time to become a foster parent to a joey. Oh, here's another visitor feeding one of the younger kangaroos. Okay, and here's two of the little joeys. And here we are as foster parents of a little joey. Okay, so at this point, we're going to leave the Northern Territory and head to Queensland. Now, I think you can see that Queensland is a very large state. It is the second largest state, second to Western Australia. And Queensland is very popular within Australia for vacationing, for areas of surfing and diving. Cairns, Australia, up around here, is widely known internationally as the dive spot for the Great Barrier Reef. The far northern part of Queensland is particularly remote and remains a fairly unspoiled area of rainforest. When we arrived in Cairns, we immediately drove north to the Daintree National Park. The Daintree rainforest is one of the oldest rainforests in the world, and the location of a great diversity of animal and plant species. We stayed there at a place called Silky Oaks Lodge, in which each visitor gets their own private lodge, with hammock and such. You can see here, if you can resist going out on walks long enough to get into a hammock. But very, as you can tell, a very lush tropical area, which again features beautiful orchids. So from there we drove to the Daintree National Park, encompassing the Daintree rainforest, in which there are numerous rivers, creeks, streams that flow out of the highlands and down to the ocean. Right here is Noah Creek, where we spent a fair amount of time looking at the plants and animals. Right along at this area, as I mentioned, the rivers flow right to the sea, and this is one of those places, Cape Tribulation. This was named Cape Tribulation by Captain Cook because of his difficulties in navigating the Great Barrier Reef. His ship, the Endeavour, actually suffered significant damage in trying to navigate the reef, and he put up at a place right near Cape Tribulation to repair the ship. That place is now called Cooktown. Oh, that was in 1770, a few years before the first colony was established. Now, the Daintree, of course, is noted for its wildlife species. And I have to say that one of the highlights of the entire trip for me was the opportunity to see a cassowary. I first learned of cassowaries when I was about 10 years old, and just thought they were one of the most marvelous birds. These birds are 3 to 5 feet tall at adulthood. They are a flightless bird and can be very dangerous, because I'm not sure if you can see in this photo the talons, particularly with one large heel claw, they can be very dangerous, even to adult humans. And this is one of the best places to see them, although in this entire expanse, there are only estimated to be around 4,000 remaining, which is of some concern to conservationists in Australia, because the cassowary is referred to as the guardians of the rainforest. This is because they are integral to the health of the rainforest in the dispersing of seeds of approximately 50 different rainforest plants. An unusual aspect of the cassowary is this is a male cassowary, and we know that because even though you can't see them, there are little cassowary chicks here in the brush. And it is the male cassowary that incubates the eggs and cares for the chicks for the first 6 to 9 months of their life. And we were very happy to see this cassowary with believe it was 3 chicks running around. Then on the right, we have a female saltwater crocodile sunning itself on a sandbar in the Daintree River, and behind a great egret. Now, Australia has both freshwater and saltwater crocodiles. In the Daintree River, they only have what they refer to as salties, the saltwater crocodiles. Okay, when we left the Daintree Reserve and took a scenic train, this is a bit of a jumping off place. We're jumping off from doing wildlife and flora and fauna and walks in the woods to going to Kuranda in the tablelands, the highlands above Cairns. This railway from Cairns goes over the Great Dividing Range, and that is a range along the eastern coast of Australia that separates the coastal plains from the interior. Now, this railway was constructed for commuters going into Cairns from their homes in the tablelands in 1886. There are 15 tunnels that had to be dug by hand and 37 bridges. Now, although this is no longer used for that purpose, it is now used for transferring tourists because of the views that you can see from the train. Now, Kuranda, the place we were going, is a popular tourist spot. It was for many years a countercultural community, and now is a tourist community with lots of shops for tourists in a very nice tropical atmosphere. To leave, we take another scenic ride on the Sky Trail. And again, you get beautiful vistas, beautiful scenery of the Daintree rainforest from up above. And here we are again with our friends. So when we arrived back in Cairns on the coast, we visited the Chapukai Cultural Center. This is a cultural park that operated in the far north of Queensland for about 30 years for the authentic culture and traditions of the local Aboriginal group, the Jabugai. Now, this provided jobs for the tribal people, and provided them an outlet to demonstrate their culture. This was founded in Kuranda in 1987 and was the largest employer for the Aboriginal people in Australia. Unfortunately, the cultural center closed in March of last year as a result of the pandemic. And we just found out recently that it was not going to be reopening. When we were there, we were treated to demonstrations of a number of native ceremonial dances. Oops. Also, Cairns has a beautiful botanic garden. They also specialize in tropical plants, especially palm trees and cycads. I'll just show a few photos. Here we have an orchid, and we know this isn't a moth orchid because that's a butterfly. I believe that's a Cymbidium orchid. Okay, so we left beautiful Cairns. And again, I didn't mention this before. I'm using Australian pronunciation for these names. And if you noted, Cairns that we just left is C-A-I-R-N-S. The R is not pronounced. It's pronounced Cairns. I don't know if there were any others that I should have pointed out before, but anyway, so we left Cairns going south along the coast with a beautiful scenic lookout here at Newcastle. Newcastle is in New South Wales, south of Queensland, and is basically the entryway to Hunter Valley, the Hunter Valley wine country. So we drove inland from Newcastle to Hunter Valley. Hunter Valley is notable for being the first site of commercial vineyards in Australia. This was in the 1830s. A number of the vineyards some of the vineyards that we visited were established in the 1830s, were some of among the first. The area boasts beautiful scenery and some world-class wines. There are about 150 wineries in Hunter Valley, producing both red and white and dry and sweet wines. Although Hunter Valley produces many very respectable red wines, particularly Shiraz, they are internationally renowned for their Semillon white wine. Now, Semillon is a French varietal, often made as a sweet wine. However, in Hunter Valley, it finds what a lot of wine connoisseurs feel is the greatest expression of Semillon. Their Semillon tends to be very dry, with aromas and flavors of lemons, limes, grapefruit, and even hints of coconut. These wines, although they can be drunk fairly young, as is somewhat unusual for white wines, they can develop for a decade or more. This is, to me, a not to be missed wine tasting experience. And unfortunately, these, although there is some of this wine shipped to the United States, it is very little. There is very little. Okay, in Hunter Valley, there are also gardens. These are the Hunter Valley Gardens. This encompasses 8 themed gardens, the most popular being the Rose Garden and what we see here, the Storybook Garden. We also visited the Hunter Valley Zoo to see some of the iconic Australian wildlife that we did not actually get to see in the wild. Here he is. What a lot of you have probably been waiting for, the koala. And I have to say my wife was overjoyed, and I believe spent an extraordinarily long amount of time with the koalas here in this zoo. They are quite endearing little animals. And we also got to see a rare albino kangaroo. There were many kangaroos at this zoo, and this was probably the most unusual. Now, before we finish, I have to mention Australia's favorite chocolate biscuit. That's the Tim Tam. This is something good to sustain you on those long days of touring Australia. Tim Tams. This is the original Tim Tam, but there's also other flavors: raspberry, dark chocolate. If we could have been doing this in person, we would have liked to have brought some Tim Tams with us, but as you've heard so many times in the last year, due to COVID, we couldn't really share Tim Tams, but maybe someday in the future. After our second trip to Australia, or actually our third, we had been to Australia one time previous to this, but maybe in a future presentation, we'll be able to share some Tim Tams.
Oh, actually, just want to interrupt there, Michael. So we did grab and go bags for the travel program, and we actually put in the Tim Tams in.
You did? Oh, great. So, Emily, did you include instructions for a Tim Tam slam?
I did not, but what I can do is in the chat, I can actually send a link to the Tim Tam slam.
Very good. We'll have to supply the Tim Tams to our friends in Santa Monica separately. These are our friends here. Just to finish up, we returned to Sydney as our disembarking place, and these are our friends Danny and Barb, with the iconic Opera House in the background, and we are much indebted to them for getting us through the second part of the trip, and driving us around and showing us things. So I guess that's it, and we'd be happy to answer questions if we can.
All right, that sounds good. So if you want to just stop sharing your screen, that'd be great.
Oh, stop sharing. You want to do it? Yeah, I can do it.
All right, fantastic.
Is that good?
Oh, absolutely there. So, does anybody have any questions for Nancy?
Watch this.
Now, I don't know if
We'll ask Nancy for it.
Terry and Connie, if you
Yeah, we're still here.
if you object to any of the things that I said.
Your presentation was terrific,
It was
Mike.
great, yeah.
I couldn't believe, I see there you gave some credits to their tourist industry for some of the pictures that you
Yes.
had. Otherwise, I wondered whether or not we were on the same trip.
Well,
Oh, by the way, Michael, your picture of the cassowary does include the chicks. In the upper right corner
Yeah.
of that picture, you see two chicks
they're
into the shrubbery,
yeah.
and they're called, they're striped in color,
Yes.
and they're called stripes at that age.
Yeah, I didn't think it was very easy to see them. So
Yeah, no, you have to search for them. Yeah.
yeah, there were two there and one over to the left.
Ah, okay. That I didn't make out.
I have a question. Did you ever consider going to Melbourne when you were in Australia?
Well, we only had a certain amount of time, and so you know, Australia is such a large country. There were a lot of places that we didn't get to go to, and we were there, like I said, for what 23, 24 days. So we're planning to return. We might make Victoria next time, but we definitely want to see Tasmania and Western Australia. But there is really so much to see. Our previous trip, we were only there a few days, and we were in South Australia, Adelaide and the Barossa Valley. But our friends from Australia, Barb and Danny, have already started planning out places to go.
I do have a quick question for you. So how long was the entire trip?
October 1 to October 23.
Oh, nice.
So did you guys take Qantas from LAX, or how did you guys get there?
No, Delta.
Okay.
We took Qantas within the country from Alice Springs to Queensland, I think.
Nice.
I think so.
When was your first trip? You said you guys had been there previously?
We actually had been to, we went there, was it 12 years ago? We were actually on a trip to Papua New Guinea.
Oh, nice.
We spent two and a half weeks in Papua New Guinea, but we felt like we had gone that far that we should spend some time in Australia. So we flew to Adelaide, rented a car, and drove up through the Barossa Valley, doing some wine tasting and eating.
That's awesome.
It's you know, typical of most wine country areas. They have wonderful restaurants also to showcase their wines.
Excellent.
Maybe someday we'll have to show photos of Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, that's a really off the radar place for a lot of Americans, especially.
Yeah. At that time, I was shooting film, so we'll have to. That'll take some work.
Oh, very nice there.
I would also like to mention that more people signed up to watch your presentation. However, I've gotten information that a lot of them are still without power.
Oh.
The snowstorm and below, the freezing weather.
Oh.
Something like 1 million people in DTE is trying to fix everything. But do you know when this will be on YouTube, Emily?
I'm going to try to get it up. I will tell Bill to at least try to get it up as soon as possible. There. So yes, to reiterate, this is being recorded and it will be on YouTube as soon as possible. So if you want to see it again or miss some of the PowerPoints that Michael and Nancy have lovely created to describe their travels, then you can always go there, pause, and whatever.
Thank you, Emily.
You're welcome. And also, for people who have not picked up their grab and go bags, we are still allowing you to pick them up throughout next week. So, and Nancy and Michael, we do have a bag for you,
Oh,
including Tim Tam.
okay. That's
And also,
good.
yeah,
I'm almost running. I've almost run out of the Tim Tams I brought back from Australia. I brought back wine and Tim Tams and the carved Woma python
Oh, I like that python.
and the painting.
Right. And also, in the bags, we do have a little bibliography of resources that you get from our library, as well as Hoopla and Libby, anything that you want to learn more about Australia and the Outback.
But I might mention, there are many things that I did not get to mention in this time frame. But you mentioned the Outback, but the Australians refer not just to the Red Center area as the Outback. There's Outback areas in New South Wales, Queensland, even in Victoria, which, if you recall the map, Victoria is a very small state in the southeastern part of the country. There's even Outback areas of Victoria in the north and west. So every state has Outback areas. The only place I would say that there aren't Outback areas are in the Australian Capital Territory. And I don't believe they refer to that in Tasmania, although Tasmania has some beautiful wild areas in the Central Highlands.
Well, thank you for letting us know there, Michael.
Welcome.
All right. Does anybody have any more questions for Michael or Nancy?
If anyone was wondering, the attractive young woman that you saw next to me with the fly nets was Nancy.
Well, before we go, I do want to mention that, well, actually, I should say, Michael had mentioned about a thing called the Tim Tam Slam. So I bet you all are wondering what the Tim Tam Slam is. And I sent a link to all of you in the chat box. And it's basically, so you know what an Irish car bomb is, right?
No.
Okay. All right, so let me rephrase this. So you basically eat like say diagonal corners of a Tim Tam, and then you dip it into either like hot coffee or hot chocolate, and then you suck on it like it's a straw. So like, then like as you're sucking on it, once the Tim Tam becomes gooey, you take it out and then eat it before it disintegrates.
That sounds like a
Slam it.
challenge.
To see it.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I was actually talking to one of my friends who does a lot of traveling. Like, we call her a nomad, essentially. And she actually has a friend that's from Australia and actually taught her that.
Oh,
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's really fun. And like I said, the instructions are in the chat box. So in case if you have your Tim Tams now, or once you get your Tim Tams in your grab and go bags, then you can consider doing this.
I'm definitely trying that.
I thought it might be a dance.
Yeah, we go, it's slam, slam, slam. All right. Does anybody have any more questions or comments or anything like that?
Is there like one thing, Michael, that you guys like would consider the highlight of your couple weeks there, or is it just the total all-encompassing trip?
Nancy's better for that than I. She usually has a highlight. There were so many wonderful things that, to me,
Yeah.
the views around of Uluru and Katajuta were amazing. It's a photographer's dream to me, because it changes the light on Uluru and the Olgas, the light changing and everything. It's just, I can stand and take photos all day, but I also love the Daintree forest, rainforest with all the wildlife. I mean, I've got lots and lots of photos of
Yes.
of insects and orchids and birds and all. I had to choose 2 birds, so, but I've got 3 birds, 4 birds, I guess. But anyway, I had lots and lots more birds and all. But those were, there's so many highlights, but she probably has one.
All right. Well, that sounds very fascinating there, Michael. Thank you for sharing that. So,
Okay.
all right. So, is there anybody else that has a question for them or just a comment?
Excellent presentation. Thank you guys for doing that.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you to everyone for.
Absolutely terrific, Michael. Absolutely
Thank
terrific.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for presenting there, Nancy and Michael. So before we go, Joanne and I do want to make an announcement that we are having another travel program next month with our patron Daryl Aaron. We'll talk about his trip to Benelux, specifically Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg.
Oh, okay.
To see you all there, and it'll be on the 3rd month of Wednesday in March. And if you register, then we might have a little treat for y'all.
We're working on that.
Belgian chocolate.
Of
Oh.
course.
I was thinking of Belgium beer.
No, we can't do that. Sorry.
Oh,
But something from Belgium and something from the Netherlands. Tentatively, we're working on it.
That sounds good. All right. Well, thank you for all coming, and we greatly appreciate you all having here, and we hope to see you all soon.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon,
Bye.
Terry and Connie.
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Bye.
We look forward to it.
Bye.